Hi there, this is Matt at State of Flux, here with another Everyone's a Critic 52-week movie challenge. We are on week 36. This one, the challenge is your favorite movie. My favorite movie is Serenity. Year released 2005. Aspect ratio 2351, runtime 1 hour and 59 minutes. Genre sci-fi, is a space western with zombies, so a little horror, comedy, romance sprinkled in, plenty of drama, action. It has it all. Rated PG-13, starring Nathan Fillion, Summer Glau, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Gina Torres, and Sean Marr. Directed by Joss Whedon, produced by Universal, written by Joss Whedon, music by David Newman, who has an incredible score. I just want to stop for a minute to highlight the amazing score this film has. David Newman is one of my favorite composers, and he does not get his praises sung enough. He did the score for Galaxy Quest, say what you will about Mighty Ducks or Jingle All the Way. Those movies might be arguably dismissible. I have a fondness for both, but the score for both of them will hit you with the feels. His very first score that was brought to my attention is from one of my stealth favorite movies, Critters. Excellent score for Critters. This dude is fantastic at doing genre scores, and my favorite score of his ever, right here, Serenity. Just the Ballad of Serenity is so hauntingly beautiful. It mixes in like the sort of Asian tone and flourishes that you get through the film and the world building, mixed in the music there before it goes to like the traditional kind of Western themes while having the horns of a big heroic epic. It's a perfect theme. Awards received. It won the Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Long-Form Presentation. Joss Whedon won that award. And the Saturn Award for Best Supporting Actress. Summer Glau walked away with that. And she is stunning in this movie as well. I'm getting ahead of myself. How many times have I seen this movie approximately? This one, in all honesty, it's got to be close to 100 times. Theatrically, in theater, I've seen it 10 times. I saw it 5 times upon its original release, and I've seen it at charity showings 5 additional times. This is one where anytime it's back for, they haven't been doing the Equality Now charity screenings as much anymore with all the Jostraversy, if you will. Anytime they would bring it back for one of those charity screenings in my hometown, I would bring somebody who had not seen it before. And every single time, some of them had never even heard of, seen any Whedon things, not even like Avengers and stuff like that. This was their introduction to Whedon outside of like Toy Story or whatever. And every single time the person that I showed it to walked out of that theater like, wow. It is a wow-inspiring movie, especially on the big screen. That last 30 minutes hits you so hard. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, what makes this one of your favorite movies? I'm a fan of... I like how in life your genre is constantly flipping. Like, yeah, 1 second it's a workplace drama, it might be a workplace romance, it suddenly flips to being a little bit of a comedy. Weird things might happen throughout your day to make it like a little bit this and that. This is a movie that is constantly flitting between genres, just as life does, obviously to far more extremes. So it captures the tonality of the world that you're presented with, in that it is a constant state of flux, if you will. And that's something that has always appealed to me. The fact that Whedon was able to traverse so many genres seamlessly is extraordinary to me. It is a movie that says something. Whedon, I believe, had a statement once where he was talking about the difference between film and television. And he's like, television is always trying to get you to watch next week. Television is a medium of questions or ellipses. You want more coming. A film is a statement. This film is an exclamation point. This film has something it's trying to say, and says so firmly. It puts it in the dialogue what this film is about. And it's about multiple things. There's multiple themes and threads that this movie is trying to say. But for a first-time director of a feature film, this is his first feature film, he hit a grand fucking slam. And I cannot sing the praises of that enough. I think the work on the characters is incredibly strong. Certainly some of them get short shrift from where they were in their TV show, but the ones that do get character development, every character gets development. Some might just have minute character development, but everybody gets character development. The ones where emphasis and focus is laying, they are just shot into a different stratosphere from where they were in the television show. And speaking of the television show, you do not have to have seen the show to gain enjoyment from the movie. As I said before, I had brought people to see this film who'd never seen the show. They liked it so much they went back and watched the show, and then like kind of bounced back and forth between the two. This is an absolutely perfect conclusion to the show, while also being a perfect launch point to get you invested in these characters, in this show, in this world. He did wonders, and did so in 8 minutes. This movie has 8 minutes to hook you. It gives you the backstory in the first 50 seconds or so of the whole world, done through dialogue. Presents you with who your MacGuffin character is kind of going to be with River. Presents you what happened to get River and out of the Alliance control, and sets up the motivation for why the Alliance needs to get her back. Presents you with a villain, and the villain's complete motivation of wanting to build better worlds, all of them, better worlds. And then gives you, which pays off extraordinarily at the end, and then gives you where are you hiding a little girl before immediately launching into the ship that she is on, and you're introduced to each individual character who is on that ship before landing and resting once more with the first character that you saw all grown up, now River. That 8 to 10 minute stretch is extraordinarily well done. The fact that once you are first set foot on Serenity, you start with Serenity's logo, the camera pulls back wide, you get to see all of Serenity before launching into the window. Then you get a single shot once they make the little explode joke. You get a single shot of Mal and Wash talking, and then Mal going through and talking to each of the individual characters, setting up their kind of who they are. And that is done extraordinarily well in a oneer, and it's a long oneer. It's an impressive oneer because you're weaving through this entire ship and seeing that this is a real living space. And it's done. It's movie magic, man. It's great. I could go on forever, and I'm going to go on a little bit more. Nathan Fillion is at his absolute best in this film. He is so good. Chiwetel Ejiofor as the villain this is the first thing I ever saw him in. Once I saw this movie, I was like, I need to watch everything this man has done. And I watched, he hadn't done a lot at that time. It was like, I tracked down Kinky Boots. I tracked down Four Brothers, which had come out that same year. He did like 4 movies in 2005, and this movie coming out towards the back half of 2005, I was able to go to the video store and rent some of the ones he'd been in earlier in the year. And he is extraordinary, and his career has continued to be very strong. Anytime he's in a movie, I know I'm in for a just stunning, magnetic performance. He is so good. I was singing the praises of Nathan Fillion. Everything he brought to the show, he brings to the movie plus 100. He goes so hard-hitting with his performance. He is seamlessly able to weave in the jokes and hit the dramatic beats You can see a lot of internalization of character, which is hard to come across. A lot of people compare Mal to Han Solo because they're both like the space pirate type. Han, you don't get a lot behind the scenes. He's everything on his shirt sleeve kind of guy. Mal, the real person within Mal is different than the person that is outward Mal. And you get that extraordinarily with the scene early on with him and River, where he's like, "You ready to do this, darling?" And then she's like, "Are you?" And he's like, "This is what I do," all cocky and self-assured. He pauses, the camera lingers on him, and then he very solemnly says, "This is what I do." Like, this is his great lament, is that this is where his life has come. This man was a believer who has lost his belief. And one of the core themes of this film is belief. It doesn't matter what you believe, just that you believe in it, is the excellent quote from Shepherd Book, and I love that. And how that pays out at the end when Chiwetel, the operative, is talking to Mal and saying, "Many good people are dying up there, innocent people," and Mal's like, "You have no idea how true that is." And then he comes to the confrontation, he's like, "Do you really believe that?" And he's like, "I do. Are you willing to die for that belief?" "I am." And then they pull the guns on each other. That whole sentiment is come into play. Just the whole operative's character is so extraordinary, with how he is working to build a world without sin, a better world. He's manufacturing what he believes is the perfect world, and he's going to ride that straight and narrow until he gets that, even though he knows firmly that he is a monster and he will never be able to live in it. But that's the price to gain perfection, and he is going to do that. But then when he's confronted with what happens when you truly manufacture a better world, and that's where the Reavers came from, the science gone amok kind of story, his whole belief structure is shattered, mirroring Mal. Mal is somebody who is this God-loving man who believes that God's divine right is going to fall upon him, and when he loses the war at the Valley of Serenity, this is stuff you get mostly in the television show, but is certainly alluded to in the film. And then you see the moment that he breaks in the opening scene of the TV show, stunningly recalled when the operative sees his belief just completely shatter. And then that's where presumably he has to learn to carry on as Mal did, and find something worth believing in again. And I like that there's that other great line by Shepherd Book where he's like, "When I talk about belief, why do you always assume I'm talking about God?" And how that's reflected in his death later on, where he says, "It doesn't matter what you believe, just believe in it, boy." This is a perfect screenplay. I have no qualms. Every single line of dialogue is placed there for a reason. Is it to grant a moment of levity in an otherwise dire situation? Even if that's the case, it's always at service of character. Maybe not like I swallowed a bug, that's just purely like levity, but every single line, like I challenge you to go through this entire film line by line and suss out, is this line important? Does it need to be there? And you will like read through the script twice, you will find every single line that is present in that feature is perfectly placed and willfully there and adds and contributes something to the overall story. If I were to ever teach a class on the art of the screenplay, I would have them look at this. Because there's a lot of movies where there's pointless dialogue, and it's fine to have like the Judd Apatow kind of like characters riffing off each other. That's fun to watch, but ultimately is disastrous to the film that you're watching. This, every single thing matters. I could talk forever, so I'm going to move on. Who is your favorite character and why? So that's a tricky question, because I have 5 answers for you. Mal, I think, is one of the strongest written characters Whedon has ever created. That's saying something. I think his all-time greatest character is Faith Lehane, maybe Wesley Wyndham-Pryce, both from Buffy and Angel. Um, but Mal, I think, would be easily a top 5 character. Mal is somebody that you go on a journey with. You start with him as a believer, and then you watch him slowly discover faith in something. Not necessarily God, but faith in a drive to continue, what it takes to live in a godless world. And he's a compelling ass character because he's also oftentimes the guy in the wrong. He's not a good person, even though there is a good person within him. This is a man who's conflicted and driven by choice, and the choice to do what's right isn't always as easily governable as you would imagine. And his character, especially in this movie, where you start to see him losing it and then finally seeing the warrior Mal at the end that we've never truly seen, is so compelling. So there's Mal. The other main character of this film is River. River on the show is a bit one-note. She's a very MacGuffin-y character, and in this you get to extrapolate a lot more. This is a young girl who horrible things were done to her in the name of science, and she is pretty well acted. The moment that she hits pure catharsis, when the truths of Miranda are revealed, really hits home and always brings me emotion. That whole scene is great. I might even add a 6th character here in 1 second. Then you have the 2 favorite characters of mine from the TV show, who are put to amazing use here, even though they're somewhat underutilized. That would be Shepherd Book. Shepherd Book has 3 scenes in this movie, but he takes absolute ownership over them. Ron Glass, rest his soul, gave a stunning performance. He is so good, and he was so good on the show as being the man of faith in this godless ship. Was always fascinating story to me, and the fact that you don't necessarily get the belief that he truly is a believer in God either, as the show continues, but he still professes the faith. And that was something that was kind of compelling to me. His backstory that went largely uninvestigated until you got into the realm of the comics, and it's a good story. But his character has always been compelling, and his 3 scenes in this movie, they get you, man. They really tug. Number 4 would be my other favorite character from the show, Wash. Wash is just pure lovable guy. He's a puppy dog of a human being. You want to just cuddle up and be with that guy because he's the funniest. He's the cool, the coolest when it comes to flying, and when he starts losing, he's cool when it's flying. Is always perfection. And his use in this film as the beats of humor sprinkled throughout the entirety of the film is perfect until it hits the dramatic shock moment, and his character's conclusion is felt throughout the entire rest of the 20 minutes that remain in the film. The 5th character I'm going to talk about is the one and done operative. His conviction, his motivations, everything is completely understandable. He reads as a real living person. He is so perfectly performed, and he is just perfection in every way. A true menace, a completely believable villain that's elegant, both in word and presentation. I always felt that he would have been a great James Bond because he can wear a suit well, he carries himself with complete integrity, while also having wit and charm and a menace behind the eyes. He is so good in this movie and one of my favorite actors. And then the sixth one I'm going to talk about has only a single scene in this movie, but she absolutely steals it. Sarah Paulson's character. It's an unnamed character, but the woman that reveals the truth about Miranda. Sarah Paulson is so amazing in that scene. That was the first thing I'd ever seen Sarah Paulson in, and she's gone on and done tremendous work, and I want to see that woman win an Oscar someday because she deserved it for this fucking movie, but she's deserved it for many other things. She is a powerhouse, and that scene is so emblematic of the whole problem with the Alliance and the belief that you can make people better. I love that, and that she starts off talking with notes of pride. She has pride in her voice, but the way she's speaking and the way she's holding herself is completely worn down and destroyed. And the prideful discussion of what they've done turns to horror before it turns to grim terror as the Reavers get to her. She is so good. I think it's 3 minutes of screen time, but she owns it, and she is perfect. Alright, I'm going to move away from the characters. Which character are you most able to identify with and connect with, and in what way? I like Kaylee. I think I'm the Kaylee, or the Wash of the crew, in that, like, I can't tinker with anything for the life of me, but Kaylee has just a hopeful optimism and is trying to always make everybody feel a little bit better, and I think that's kind of me in a nutshell. Or I also try to bring levity to any situation, so I'm a Wash. Yeah, there you have. Best line or most memorable quote? There are so many. Obviously, there's I'm a leaf on the wind, watch how I soar. Do you know what your sin is? Oh, hell. I'm a fan of all seven, but right now I'm going to have to go with Wrath. That is one of the coolest lines ever spoken. I'm going to show you your greatest dream. I'm going to show you a better world. Do you know what the definition of a hero is? Someone who gets other people killed. That one always sticks out at me. I don't care what you believe in, just believe in it. There's just so many. I could go on and on. I love Mal's whole speech of you all got on this boat for different reasons, but you all going to the same place. Right now I'm asking more of you than I have before, maybe all. Sure as I know anything, I know this. 5 years from now, 10, they're going to revert back to the belief that they can make people better, but I do not hold to that. That whole speech, is so good. I am to misbehave, quoting the famous feminist movement. So anyway, yeah, it's the whole script is the answer. The best, most memorable quote is the entirety of the script. My favorite scene. I have a couple. So I'm gonna say the scene where Serenity comes through the ion cloud. The operative is watching and is like, "You should have shown her to me, Captain. We should have done this in person." That whole scene, and then they're like, "Alright, you got him on target," and they're planning to blow, and then all of a sudden the Reavers come through the thing, and then for the first time ever you see the operative lose control. Target the Reavers, somebody fire! Is so good. And then I'm a leaf on the wind, watch how I soar, and you watch how Wash navigates through everything and loses control, and that space battle is easily the best space battle ever put to film. I challenge anybody to find a better one. That you can't do it. That is it. That is the best space battle. And not a single shot is fired from Serenity. It's just them evading fire. And it's stunning. It is so good. It is the most white knuckle scene, especially if you've ever seen it on the big screen. The sound, the look, the way it's photographed, the disorientation while being able to completely focus and understand everything that is happening in front of you, perfectly shot. And then gliding into the landing and the thing is bouncing, and then Wash has his little joke, and then absolute terror hits you, stunning shock, then the numbness feeling of like, oh my god, anything can happen. Literally anything can happen. I don't know what's going to happen now. So that was my shock the first time I saw it. I actually felt numb when it happened. And then them running into the battlefield, where they're like going to lock everything up and they're trying to buy the time so that Mal can do what he needs to. That whole scene is perfect, and then it just continues. The last half hour of this movie is the best half hour of cinema, in my opinion. I cannot think of anything better than how it just continues and layers, and you get payoffs and meaning and stuff. It's truly great filmmaking. The final scene of Mal just walking through the rest of Serenity, talking to people. You think she'll hold together? She's tore up plenty, but she'll fly true. That the double meaning with Zoe there of what is being said can both relate to her and the ship. And that's something that is so beautiful to me, and how he just goes through and reconnects with everybody one last time, except for Jane, who doesn't have anything to say. He's purely there for the muscle, so he's just going to be in the background eating noodles. Then he sits down, and you get a final moment between Mal and River, and that is beautiful. And the sweet lament of love. I love that scene. It's so good. But there are many scenes. I think the whole the scene where Mal does his monologue is great. The Miranda scene, the Sarah Paulson scene, the action beat where River is kicking around everything. Just everything about this movie is perfect. Do you have an interesting tidbit about you and this movie? So I came about Firefly pretty early on. Right after the show finished, it had not done well. Within 6 months of its cancellation, it was on DVD. And I went to go to Suncoast Video to buy Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I'd known that he had done another show, but I hadn't ever watched it because I did stuff on Friday nights, and so this was just something that I was never going to be bound to see. And I went to Suncoast. They had Firefly mismarked. I only had enough money to really buy Buffy because I could only buy like half of another thing. And they meant to put this movie on sale for $39.95, but they had it for $19.99. And so I ended up, they were like, oh, we can't sell it to you. And I'm like, you got the sticker on it. And so they had to sell it to me for that. So I got Firefly. And it took me a while to watch it. I remember trying to watch that pilot. It took me about 5 tries to actually get past the first 15 minutes. Not that it was bad. It was different than what I was used to. And I wasn't really sure about it. And I watched the pilot, and I liked it. And then I watched the next episode, and I liked it. And the third episode, and I liked it. It was the episode Out of Gas that made me fall in love with the show. And I continued watching. It took me like 3 months to get through, and it's only 15 episodes or so. The moment that I finished the last episode, I was like, this is great. I want to rewatch it. So I went back and rewatched the pilot episode, also called Serenity. And I sat through it in one whole sitting, and I was like, what took me so long? And then I continued watching it. And then after I finished the series front to back, this time in about 3 days, I started it over again. And I just did it again. And I started it over again. And I'd been following, I was a fan of Whedon, and so I had been following on Whedon-esque, which is now kind of defunct. And heard that he was trying to get this into a feature, and I was like, huh. And I remember when it was officially announced as a feature, I was like, huh, I'll have to keep that on the back burner. Um, Once I'd finished the show and gone through it 3 times, I was obsessed with watching this movie, and it was originally supposed to come out in April of 2020, but they were afraid of it being lost in the Star Wars shuffle. So it got pushed to September. I honestly think that if it had come out before Star Wars, it might have done better. And it is a shame. But I digress. The I saw the trailer when it first debuted, and then I saw the second trailer, and I didn't read up on it. I didn't want to know much of anything about it, and so I walked into the movie kind of like feeling uncertain how it was going to be. The reviews were pretty okay, but they weren't like anything to write home about, at least initially. I watched through the movie, and the first half of the movie I'm like, this is good. This is a very good movie. It feels like a continuation of the show, but it didn't necessarily feel to me like a movie until the reveal of the whole Miranda thing. And then the moment that stole me was the numbness feeling of the leaf on the wind scene. And I walked out of the movie. I continued sitting throughout the entire credits, and then I got up, and I remember I was at the Harmar Mall, just walking around the perimeter of the entire building before looping back to that front of the theater, thinking that I had seen something that had moved me, unlike anything I had been moved by before, which is weird. It took me a long time to admit that this was my favorite movie, but truthfully, no other movie has made me feel the way this one did when I walked out of it. There's been a couple of other ones that have had like lasting impressions the moment I walk out. Return of the King had that. Certainly like big fanfare epics like Endgame and stuff, I walked out just being like mind blown at how powerfully hitting the highs are. But this one, as I was walking around the building, I felt like something had changed, and I didn't know what. And truthfully, what it was I had just watched my favorite movie for the first time, and all the secrets of the film were preserved in like till the moment of reveal throughout the film. There were no spoilers. Nothing got spoiled for me, which is not true for a lot of people. If you watched people who were like infinitely on those message boards and stuff like that, a lot of them talk about some of the character deaths having been spoiled for them ahead of time before the movie's release. There was a huge campaign for about like 4 to 8 months or something like that, where they were showing this city to city, and I almost went to the one in Minneapolis with Ron Glass and Joss Whedon, but I just couldn't really find anybody to go with me, so I didn't end up seeing it. I regret that. Oh, heartbreaking. But anyway, so I could have seen this early too, but everything about that experience was like preserved in amber. I just remember walking around the theater afterwards, being blown away by the movie I had just watched. And so I went home and I started calling my friends. My friends had gone off to college. I took a year off before going to college. And I was like, you've got to see this movie. And we'd all been fans of Firefly because they had gotten into it through me. And I was like, you need to do it. You need, just go out and watch this movie. And some of them who were still in town agreed to hang out with me. So Saturday night, I went back to the theater with my friends, and they had a similar response. They were just like, whoa. I have a friend, to this day, I have the distinct memory of like us walking out of the theater, and he was like, you can't do it, you can't stop the signal. Like, he and I, months prior, when the first poster for Serenity had come out, and the subtitle to the film was "You Can't Stop This," or the tagline to the film was "You Can't Stop the Signal," and we were like, "What a stupid tagline! That's dumb. What does that even mean?" And then, like the one who was making fun of that the most, as we were walking out of the theater, he's like, "You can't stop the signal," and he just kept repeating it. And he's like, "You can't do it. You can't stop the signal." and like he felt like he had changed, and it was kind of neat. A friend of ours who was like way into Whedon and then kind of lost the Whedon train because he stopped liking fiction in general. We dragged him to it the following weekend, and he walked out and he was like, I've never seen, his quote was, I've never seen a more heroic moment than Mal walking, limping across the little manufactured bridge when he finally raises the controls for the bridge to get back across to his crew. He just kept saying that that was the most heroic thing he'd ever seen. Like, he's like, that is what a hero looks like. I brought my dad to it on the third day. So I saw it every day that weekend. Friday I saw it by myself. Saturday I went with a group of friends. Sunday I was like, Dad, you need to see it. And he was like, all right. He liked Buffy enough. He'd watched an episode or two of Firefly. He watched Ariel and he watched Out of Gas. Those are the only 2 episodes he'd ever seen. He walked in and he was like, all right. And then after the movie ended, he was like, I'm glad we did that. That was a good movie. And like, he was really impressed. The next time I saw him have a reaction like that, where he was like openly like gushing about a movie afterwards, was in 2012 when we watched The Avengers. So I thought it was funny that Whedon brought that out of him twice. Because usually we walk out and we start discussing our more base criticisms of a movie, not immediately singing the praises. But he immediately started singing the praises of this film. And then, so then I took a couple of days off, and then Friday, Saturday, I saw it again with 2 other groups of people. I got all my core friend group to go between those Saturday and Saturday. And it was awesome. So anyway, that's a long story of my involvement with this movie. Anything else I would like to add? This is one that I hope, particularly now, that people are able to watch this movie, because I understand why if you can't because of the whole Whedon controversies and stuff, but this is such a good movie that I think it deserves to rise above the man who made it. Because, well, I think the screenplay is where it's at, and the direction and stuff like that. And I'll talk about the direction in a second. It's this cast, it's these people, it's these characters, it's this crew. It's this, the way this film is shot. This film is amazingly shot. This is a work of art in terms of its music. That I hope people can rise above the Whedon of it all to gain some enjoyment of this movie. I wanted to touch on the direction. I think if you were to watch this film as well, if I were to have a class on film, I would also show this film for how its use of camera as character and how it uses the frame to speak about characters. You have a scene where completely out of line, Jane is yelling at Mal, who's so angry, and he's just sort of standing there, and you can see how he's seething. But everything he's saying would also affect the other person who was at the Battle of Serenity, Zoe. And the film cuts from Jane and Mal, very like tight shot on tight medium on both of them, and you see Mal seething, and then it cuts to a like tight close-up of Zoe, but it's completely unfocused. And then she leans into it, and as she leans into the shot, the frame focuses to like laser precision, and she says to him, you need to leave this room. But how it is unfocused and then comes into the laser focus speaks volumes about her character without saying a word. She is seething with rage just as they are. Certainly just as bad as Mal is. But she is able to control it and tell him that he would do best to leave the room. And Jane, upon seeing turning and looking at her, agrees that he should remove himself, and that's something that his character, it would be out of character for his character to do because he's a stubborn bastard, but he looks at her and then goes, and you can tell that just from that shot, that focus shot. It is great. The other great Zoe moment is when Mal, early on in the film, shoots a guy and stuff as a piece of mercy. And then later on in the thing when Simon, who I haven't talked about at all, he's great in this film, when Simon is with, knows what River's capable of and knows the secret to control her, and Mal, without saying anything, just grabs him and whips him up against the table. The camera cuts to a tight low shot right at Zoe's hip, and you just see her hand move there for a microsecond, and then she holds herself back. But you know that she is ready to grant Simon that bit of mercy by shooting the captain if she needs to in that exact moment. It is perfection. Everything about the way this film is shot is perfect. Sure, some of the special effects don't necessarily hold up entirely well, but I think this is a $50 million movie. Like, for context, Joker cost $75 million. For a $50 million movie in 2005, this movie looks really fucking good. Especially those special effects, which I think hold water, certainly, to Revenge of the Sith, which I'm sure was like a $180 million movie when that was produced. So yeah, qualms about special effects aside, I'm a Star Trek guy. I can deal with bad special effects, This is a perfect movie. I think I've sung the praises enough. I would like to actually do a deep dive. I've thought about doing like film commentaries, and maybe that's something I'll do next year. Do like a commentary a month and get like a special guest critic, one of my friends or something, who is deeply immersed in film, and then just talk over a movie. I think that would be really kind of fun, like a watch along. If you're interested in that, let me know in the comments down below. But giving a sneak peek to what we're gonna do next week, a natural disaster film. I'll see if I can come up with something fun. But anyway, let me know what you think of Firefly or Serenity, certainly Serenity, in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. Peace.